Hi, welcome to part 4 of the CodeChat literate programming tutorial. In the first part we just talked about generally what literate programming is, and then in the second part restructured text and taking that to the next level with Sphinx. We're going to back up a little bit and talk about just basic usage of CodeChat. Now before we get started, I'm going to be using some demonstration files that come straight from the CodeChat source, so make sure you got the source code for CodeChat downloaded and unzipped, and we'll follow along from there. So in terms of basic CodeChat, we're basically going to look at what happens when we treat comments as if they're restructured text. So let's go over to Enki, and I'm going to open the setup.py file from those downloaded files that we have. So here's setup.py. Right now I don't need the Python interpreter or a navigator, and we don't really see anything special because we need to go ahead and turn the right settings on. In particular, we want to, in the literate programming box, so I'll click on literate programming, we want to enable CodeChat. Since we're not using Sphinx right now, let's make sure that the enable Sphinx project is unchecked. That might have been checked from last time if you've performed the previous tutorial. So let's take a quick look at that. We'll hit OK on that, and immediately notice what happens. My source code is now being rendered into a web page. So here's the setup.py, and you can kind of see the example that I've written. I put an overline, underline, and that makes it a title. And we can go through and again treat a lot of what you're seeing here, all the comments, as restructured text. And I find this immensely helpful. For example, if I'm talking about distutils, it would be nice to include a link to distutils. So if I want to remind myself of how it works and pull up the reference for it, well, there it is. And that's very convenient. And likewise, if I wanted to go over to PyPy or look up how setup tools works, I've got immediate access to that reference information. A couple other things that I like. Again, I can put some comments. Where did I learn all this stuff? The Python packaging user guide and setup tools and that sort of thing. Another thing that I've enjoyed in terms of making me productive, I can write some notes to myself. Here's the procedure to go and upload the latest version of CodeChat onto the PyPy packaging website. If I want to update my documentation, I've got a nice command line right here that I can easily find and deal with it. This reminds me not only what to type if I'm doing development, but again, there's a nice link. How does that development mode work? And what is the flag, and what is the background? Well, I found that once in the web, and here it is again. So that's, again, a very useful thing. So I just put a bunch of comments in setup, and again, notice that all I have to do is just put a comment in like you normally would, and then treat that comment as if it's restructured text. There's really a small number of rules in terms of how comments are treated. Here they are. The rules are you have to put a comment on a line containing only comments or white space. It's not going to treat a mixed line of code and comments as restructured text. And you need to follow the opening comment delimiter with a space. So, for example, over here, if I delete that space, now you'll notice that this is just treated as source code and all my nice formatting goes away. Likewise, if I have a line of code here, things like this, if I put some restructured text here, notice that it's not going to be interpreted as restructured text. That's just plain text. So as long as I have stuff on a separate line, then I'm free to go and create a lot of great comments and a lot of great documentation. And again, because these comments are in restructured text, if you have a colleague who is not using the literate programming environment, notice that this is all fairly readable. I mean, you know, the hyperlinks are a bit distracting, but a colleague could also just copy and paste that hyperlink into their browser if they wanted to find out that information you're referring to. And someone, again, who's not familiar with the system will find the comments that you write both more descriptive because you're now writing a document, and very readable. So this invites other people to join you rather than forcing them to understand some obscure notation. Now, one thing that's really lacking here is this only allows me to document one file, and in fact, this file only exists here in memory. If I want to save it, I can manually go and save that file, but I need to update that every time. What we're going to do next is take a look at combining CodeChat with Sphinx, where we can now automatically write the files to disk so you can post it on a website, link many files together, and get a beautiful environment. And we'll look at that in the next tutorial.